They handle like the big cars. They crash like the big cars. And they excite like the big cars. No, they are not toys. These are radio-controlled quarter-scale race cars that can eat up the track at speeds exceeding 60 miles per hour. Welcome to the bright lights of exciting Las Vegas, host of the quarter-scale Super Nationals. And our vantage point is we stop to take a look at quarter-scale racing at its best. Just like the full-size cars, quarter-scale embraces the power of the super modified, the competition of the Grand Nationals, and the thrill of the Outlaw Sprint cars. From graceful motorcycles leaning into the turns without the aid of a third wheel, to the biggest and baddest four-wheel drive monster trucks. Mechanics prepare these machines with the precision and know-how it takes to win. Pit crews ready to act in split-second time. And racers pushing their cars for that glorious checkered flag. Don't be fooled. This is the real McCoy. Quarter-scale racing. Like any other competitive sport, every quarter-scale racer sets his eye on victory. But unlike the ruthless do-or-die competition of full-size racing, quarter-scale racers such as Dale Smith have a different outlook on race day.
The thing about the car racing is it's fun. It's important to just be a part of it. You can't win all the time, so if you expect to win all the time, forget it. You're going to break sometimes, you're going to win sometimes, you're going to win when you should have won, you're going to lose when you should have won, you're going to win when you shouldn't have won. And so there's a lot of racing luck. But being with the guys and lying to them and having them tell you big lies and seeing who can be the biggest liar and then who believes it and who doesn't is just part of it. They'll get together out there and they'll tap and they'll break parts and a couple of words might get said here and there. But in 20 minutes, the guy will be over sharing parts and helping the guy with a car and helping get him back on the track and back in the race so they can just go to it and rock and roll and good racing.
And good racing is what these quarter-scale radio-controlled cars are all about. Strategy and control. Taking chances while avoiding disaster. Courage to seize opportunity, and persistence to become leader of the pack. But behind every vehicle that operates to full potential, behind every victory lies the expertise of mechanics and the ingenuity of designers. This behind-the-scenes dedication gives the driver that little extra handling advantage through the turns, that added burst of power that speeds his car first across the finish line. Quarter-scale racer and designer John Ray, president of Rayco, took time out of his busy race day schedule to explain some of the features that make his cars the fastest in the business.
Okay, this particular car is one of the three classes in quarter scale. It's a super modified car. As you can see, it has the styling of much like an Indy car, which is the way the full-size super modified cars are going these days. It has fully independent front suspension and rear suspension. It has rubber tires, much like the tires you would have on your family car, only 1/4 size. They actually have the Goodyear logo on the tires, so they're very authentic looking cars. The engine used in these cars is a 23cc weed eater engine, actually is what it is. They're designed to run on gasoline, but two of the classes, the sprint car class and the super modifieds, the majority of cars run on methanol, which is the same kind of fuel that they use at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the speedway cars. The second of the three classes in quarter scale is what we call Outlaw Sprint cars. And these are actually quarter scale size version of the sprint cars you see on television that you might see Steve Kinser driving, or Sammy Swindell, or some of the other famous stars on the outlaw circuit. This is the lightest of the three classes. It's 19.5 pounds. So these cars have a little better acceleration than the other two. As you can see, the suspension in the front is fully operational. These cars actually use stagger just like a full-size car would, and the right rear tire is actually somewhat larger than the left rear tire, and that's what helps the car go around the turn as quickly as possible. The wing is made such that the two sideboards are staggered. In other words, this one's higher and this one lower, and that's so that when the car goes through the turns, the wing provides the maximum side force from the air passing by the car to make the car handle real well. The third class of cars in quarter scale is what we call Grand National cars, or Winston Cup cars. This is the heaviest class of the cars. This car weighs 29.5 pounds. Many of the drivers paint the cars up like Darrell Waltrip's car, like Dale Earnhardt's car. And that's why people and spectators relate to them so well, is because they do resemble, right down to the detail in the hood and paint lines, the car that's seen on television every other Sunday. All of the classes boil down to who's the better driver and who's the better mechanic at setting up the cars.
Before the racing begins, mechanics can be seen torquing and tweaking. The racers size up the competition, looking on with anticipation for their chance at the track. Meanwhile, spectators settle in during individual qualifications, and George Brazil, professional full-size and quarter-scale racer, makes a few last-minute adjustments on his Outlaw Sprint.
I've been racing professionally dirt track stock cars for somewhere in the vicinity of about 22 years, I guess. You lose the thrill of the feeling you get driving a real car, but what you do gain is, by the background and the knowledge that I have, I'm able to watch the car and still have an understanding of the feeling that it should have. And when I drive with the radio, it's just like I put myself behind the car, and then I carry on from there and I drive. You know, it's just, it's a heck of a deal. You know, big car racing sometimes gets a little out of perspective, you know, as far as the entertainment of it amongst the racers. You know, for us, this is entertainment. It's competitive, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're here to race and we're all here to win.
Of course, not all the attention was on the cars. Before the racing began, we got a chance to see a demonstration of the exotic and realistic high-powered quarter-scale motorcycles raced by champion Jens Jorgensen of Denmark.
Well, the bike works in that way that the gyro of the front wheel keeps the bikes up. And when you have to turn, you turn directly on the fork. When you turn to the left, the bike goes to the right. And that's what it's all about. It's just to limit that steering.
Manufacturer Kenneth Harper of Live Performance explains some of the mechanics of the bike.
The bike comes with a separated starting stand because the motor has no starter on board. And it uses a glow plug ignition system, which you attach up front right in here. You start this starter motor here, press the bike down onto the starter motor, and it engages the bike's flywheel. With a top speed of somewhere in the 55 to 60 mile an hour, this wheel is turning around 3,600 RPM. This is a steel chain that's lasted over 300 hours on my first bike. It's geared 2.5 to 1 to the rear transmission brake. The front brake is an aluminum disc, drilled and ventilated. Most of the stopping ability of the bike comes with the front wheel because as you decelerate, the weight changes to the front wheel. It is a trade-off when you race this bike. If you go into the turn too fast, the bike will slip out from underneath and you will fall, and you lose time that way. If you go into a turn too slow, the bike conceivably could fall. So you have to be in a pocket at all the time. You can't be over anxious, you can't be too far behind. Unlike car racing, the bike does go down. You will spill. Even the best racer will go down